and then that consciousness wanting to assert itself in an individual form took the human body, and now we're doing experience. We're trying to experience certain things because intuitively we know we're that thing that we're trying to experience, but we've forgotten it, and so we're trying to experience it in the phenomenal form. Karma, what that comes down to, it's not necessarily action, because you can't take going to the bathroom isn't karmic. That's just a necessity. What karmic really is, it's intention. What's your intention? If you have intentions, because what you're doing is you're kind of projecting really an invisible force out there. So if you want something good for somebody, something good's going to come back to you. But if you want something bad, then something bad's going to come back to you. So it's really more intention than it is strictly action. It's not really action as such. Now, the reason for that is because the universal law is equilibrium. Everything tries to equilibrate itself, and that's the cycle of life. That's why anytime civilization rises, it has to fall. It has to. There's no other way. There's no such thing as permanence in the phenomenal world. There's actually a great adage that a sage said, that there's nothing permanent in this world but change, which I thought was kind of interesting, because it just gives you a perspective that, all our efforts in the end are futile, but they're not. Then the only objective should be to try to reach that absolute again through whatever effort that we can, because as much as you want to make money, or you want to create a civilization or do a revolution, ultimately it's going to dissipate into nothing, just like everything already has.
Okay,
so
I got a question.
Actions speak louder than words, but intention speaks louder than that. Is that what you're saying?
Intention. It's exactly. It's not what you do; it's why you do what you do. And that's kind of even law. When you do legalities, if you kill somebody, they're not there to test. Did you kill somebody? That's assumed. Why did you kill him? Was it accidental? Was it anger? Was it a hate crime? Was it a plot of murder? Because then it's like, if you kill somebody and it was self-defense, you'll walk off scot-free. If you killed him because he was black, you'll probably get 25 years. It's just like, it's not what you did; it's why you did what you did.
That's interesting.
So next question that this alludes to. So I go in and I rob a bank.
Right.
And I rob the bank because I want money to feed my family. My intention is we are broke and we're losing our house and I want to feed my family.
Right.
However, in robbing that bank, I've taken money from people that also need to feed their family and have food on the table, and perhaps there's not FDIC.
Right.
And so there's people that are hurt in that process of my actions.
Right.
My actions, even though my intentions were noble, I guess.
Right.
I'm trying to take care of my family, but I've hurt people in the process. How does that affect my karma?
I would say it's a much more complicated question than this, because because I understand, but what immediately popped into my mind was about 20 certain chain reactions and relationships that you had in that person, because what it comes down to is, first of all, okay, you did what you needed to do. Is it wrong? I think, I don't think I personally don't feel there's any such thing as good and bad. It's not about good and bad.
Agreed.
Because, is it good that the banks loan money out to you for usury? Which is basically like fabricating, taking excess energy from you. Is that good? Is the existence of a bank a good thing? Is the fact that you're hungry a good thing? Are you just reacting merely to a certain cause which you don't understand? And that's why I don't necessarily think that's. I really wouldn't interpret that as a bad thing. I really wouldn't, because what it comes down to is not necessarily individual action, but it's why you're doing what you're doing. There, and we've talked about this before, where there's a saying in in certain spiritual adages, where spiritual law surpasses ethics and moral law. And so what I guess it comes down to, and this is another reason, like we talked about, why I think the New World Order is so successful, is because they believe their cause is a spiritual cause. It's not about country. It's not about nation. It's not about money. It's about God. God wills our undertaking, which is actually written on the back of the dollar. If you guys, right underneath the pyramid, that's what that says. God wills our undertaking. He's basically literally saying God is favoring our actions, so screw what you think, And what's interesting is you see that they're successful despite the fact of millions of people opposed to their actions. So what I think it comes down to is that if you do what you're doing for a spiritual reason, a higher reason, and you genuinely believe it, who's to say you're wrong? And I know it sounds like a vague and ambiguous answer, and in some respects it is, but I think that's what it comes down to. Even, like Albert Pike said, there is nothing higher than reason itself. There is no reason for reason other than reason itself. Like, that's the purpose, that we have this duality, and then beyond duality is the absolute, but that's inexplicable. It's it's something you have to experience. But it's nothing that you can articulate into words, and everything in that is just a dance of the cosmos. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I really don't. I think it's indifferent. They're personal objectives. What is hurt? What is that? Like, if you really want to get metaphysical, if you steal from somebody, if I steal from them and they never recognize that I stole $5 from them, was anybody really hurt?
But what if they do?
What if that was a karmic deliverance too? What if the whole reason was because you were supposed to take that because maybe they were supposed to have $5 taken from them because maybe they did something to somebody else?
And then that goes back to what we even talked about in the lecture a little bit earlier, that everything is exactly the way it ought to be. Exactly. You just have to rearrange your perception and understand and accept that. Understanding is it what it is, and that's why I don't. That's why I don't personally get mad about the whole New World Order thing. I think people, they've been playing victims, they've been playing verdicts, and there's nothing for free in this world. You've got good housing, you had good housing, good food, good all this, and it came at the cost of slavery. Albert Pike probably said it the best in Morals and Dogma: a nation will always sell itself into slavery to justify its own passion and vindictive behavior. Always.
Interesting.
Never an exception. And America is a perfect example of that. They sold themselves into slavery to justify their own passions.
Is that ultimately the goal, that we're all slaves? Do you think, the control part of it?
Ultimate goal of what?
I guess the leaders that are in control.
Yeah, they want to keep you as slaves, right? Because they want your energy. That's what it is. It's much more profound than just, than just work for me because I don't want to work because I'm lazy. It's not like that. It's much more profound. It really is an energy. You have to understand that when you get... just think about if you have an idea and you want to actualize the idea. Let's say that you want to conquer somebody or you want to build a house, and you can get one person to work for you. That's that much more energy accumulated that you have a person working for your cause. Now, if you have 5 people, that's that much more energy, and it's not about the manpower that does it. It's really about energy. It's like a tidal wave. If you have a drop of water, you're not going to feel it. But if you have a billion drops of water creating a tidal wave, you can consume an entire city. And that's what it comes down to. Your energy is what gives them life. The entire process is based on faith alone. It's based on your consciousness, your energy polarizing to their idea. This whole thing is their idea about suburbia, about taxes, about buying food, about credit cards, about driving, gasoline. That's all their idea. And it doesn't matter. And that's why I said, unless you're willing to truly extricate yourself out of it by just bypassing their system, you're not doing anything. If you think you're driving a hybrid and you're helping the world, you're not doing anything. If you think you're driving an electric car, you're not doing anything. You're still paying them taxes. You're still paying them taxes. You're still using their byproducts. You're still being regulated by them. You're still paying annual registration. You're still getting a citation when you do something out of line. And so, unless you're truly willing to set an example by going out of the system entirely, then
do the Upanishads address this? Do they?
They do, and they do spiritually, because they liberate the consciousness from the phenomenal necessities of life. Ego, about needing a house, needing a house in the respect that you want to justify our ego by looking better than the Joneses, or getting that car that makes you look better than the Joneses. Because what it does is it takes the internal consciousness and reverts it back into itself to try to discover yourself, and then with that respect, then what it really does is the whole attempt of the Upanishads is commentaries on the Rig Vedas, which is the objective of it, which is to liberate the consciousness from the phenomenal world, so you can sublimate back into the absolute, from which we came. That's the whole objective of it.
We're going to talk about liberating the consciousness in just a minute when we come back after this commercial break. Stay tuned for more of our visit with Joe Dolezal.